I'm gonna let you in on a little secret about filmmaking. Are you ready? It turns out the actual camera that you shoot your films on is one of the last things that matter when it comes to the quality of your movie. Amateurs are always fascinated by fancy and expensive cameras with big sensors and high frame rates, but real professionals know that that's not what matters when it comes to making a film that looks cinematic. If amateurs are captivated by cameras, professionals are captivated by their lighting. How you light your film will be one of the biggest factors in giving it a professional, cinematic look. To prove to you that your lights are way more important than your camera, I'm going to do a quick test here. First, I'm going to have one of my assistants set up the $8,000 camera that I use to shoot TV commercials and other big projects. But the only lights that are going to be turned on are the natural overhead lights in the room that are normally on. Now, I'll have them move and set up an $800 camera, the ZVE-10, which is literally a tenth the cost of the first camera. And this time, we'll turn off the overhead lights and position a few lights just from around my house using 3-point lighting, which is what I'm going to teach you how to do in this video. There are the two shots side by side. And this is what it looks like just shooting on my iPhone SE, which isn't even close to being the nicest smartphone camera on the market. You can see just how jarring the difference is. That's because your lighting is far more important than your camera. It doesn't matter what you're shooting on if your lighting is still terrible. The most basic cinematic light setup is called 3-point lighting. It's when you light your subject using 3 lights placed strategically around your subject, and it's what I'm using to light this shot here. To illustrate it for you, let's start by turning everything off. The first light is called your key light. This is the main light lighting your subject and should be positioned about 45 degrees above your subject. You don't need a protractor to get the angle right, you can just approximate and you'll be fine. Now, you'll notice that since the light is off to the side, there's a shadow cast on the other side of my face. Our second light is going to fill this shadow in, so it's called a fill light. Again, this light should be positioned about 45 degrees above your subject on the other side. Notice the second light isn't as bright as the key light and leaves part of the shadow still visible. This is exactly what we want. Creating a cinematic image is all about creating depth, and shadows create depth. Good lighting isn't about eliminating shadows. Rather, lighting is about controlling your shadows. The last light is called a backlight because it's positioned behind the subject, technically lighting their back. You can see that when it's turned on, it gives a rim of light around the edge of my body. Now, normally you'd position this light just out of frame, but for this shot, I really like having it in frame so it adds a little extra dimension to my otherwise static black background.
How you position your key light is also really important for you to consider. You're going to position it off to one side of your subject, and the angle at which you position it is going to determine the shadows cast on the face.
This is called loop lighting. The light is positioned in front of me, fairly close to the camera, and you'll notice that my nose casts a slight shadow on my face, hence the name loop lighting. Now, if you move the light to the side, you'll see more shadows start to take shape on my face until a small triangle of light appears under my eye. This lighting setup is called Rembrandt lighting because it's the style of lighting the Renaissance artist Rembrandt would use in his paintings. It's a beautiful, dramatic style of lighting that's what I personally like to use for most of my work. If you continue to move the key light to the side, you'll eventually lose half of the face in shadow. This is called split lighting because the face is split between light and shadow. It's a very dramatic way to light the subject and make it feel more mysterious or even scary in the right situation. And that really defines which style of lighting you want to use in your film. Do you want the film to feel more mysterious? Then use Rembrandt or split lighting. Or do you want it to feel more upbeat and playful? Then use something closer to loop. Your style of lighting should always serve the story that you're trying to tell. Now, to light our scene just using some lights from around the house, we'll start by choosing our key light. I'm going to use this window next to the table as a key light, as the light coming in from the sun is going to be the cleanest, brightest light I have access to. And since it's an overcast day outside, there's going to be lots of diffusion. But since the window is in a fixed location and isn't quite big enough to light both subjects at once, I'm going to have to pull some movie magic to light the scene. I'll shoot one side of the scene focusing on the first subject, and then when I get my shots focusing on the other subject, I'm going to physically move the table and actors in order to position them where the lighting looks the best. But in editing, when I cut back and forth between the two shots, you won't even notice unless you're looking really hard at the positioning of the background. The next light I'm going to place is my backlight. For this light, I'm going to use a desk lamp placed on a shelf in order to get it to the right height. You can see that this shot is really starting to come together now, but there's a really dark shadow in between where the desk lamp, my backlight, and the window, my key light, is hitting the subject. So I'm going to bring in this taller lamp and place it off to the opposite side of the key light to fill in the shadows on the face. And there you have it, a cinematic looking image just using lights from around my house. Now, this of course is going to be different for everyone, since you're not going to have the same exact lights and shelves laying around your house. So when you shoot your film, you're going to have to be creative and use what you have at your disposal to implement 3-point lighting at your location.
A lot of people feel like they really need big, expensive cameras and equipment to pull off the kind of footage you see in Hollywood movies. But in reality, it's all about the filmmaker's knowledge and vision for the film, not the camera they're shooting on. And to prove it, I shot a film on a $700 camera, the Sony ZV-E10, and managed to get the cinematic film look you're seeing on screen now. We produced a ton of behind-the-scenes content for the film, diving into the lighting setups we used, our camera settings, and everything else we did to shoot the film, My Story. You can check it out by clicking the first link in the description below.